Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I am getting started a little bit late today. I've got a lot of different things I was going to go over, but we had a really crappy weekend in this part of the country. University of Georgia lost to Alabama in football, but worse than that, because I really don't have a dog in that fight since I went to Auburn, but worse than that, the Atlanta Braves literally choked and lost Game 7 to the Los Angeles Dodgers last night. I actually kind of got the vibe that the Braves were out of gas, and I went to bed early, and I was right, as it turned out. But that was kind of depressing. I mean, the Braves had it. They could just taste it, and they literally choked. All right, enough of that. Now, this was a tweet from yesterday. Tomorrow is the anniversary of the 1987 Black Monday crash. This was in the stock market. In fact, I believe I want to say I was in 7th grade when this happened. And I remember it because my dad, who happens to be calling me right now, I'm going to call him back after I finish this video. He got me to do a paper on Black Monday when I was in 8th grade. So I'm assuming it happened in 7th grade is about when that would have happened. But the stock market crashed big time, and it affected a lot of people, I think, including my dad, who was, who felt strongly enough about it to help me write a paper on it. Heyo Seiko Carmona sent me this. CoinDesk, the Bitstamp cryptocurrency exchange, now has insurance coverage for theft and other losses of user funds, even if assets are held online. This wave is what I believe you're about to start seeing, is a wave of these companies like Coinbase and others announcing that they have insurance. I believe that the idea of having your digital assets stolen is going to go away. I believe this is going to be just like when you go on E-Trade and you buy a stock. You're not going to worry about where the certificate is. You're going to know that you own it. You're not going to worry about somebody stealing the certificate or whatever. That's the road we're going down. Now, so that's a big deal. Now, Brown Crypto Kid tweeted this out, and I thought this was interesting. October 17th, XRPL asset statistics, USD volume per second was 100 billion, probably nothing. And he's got this chart down here. And I went to this website. This does look interesting. Something happened on the 17th, it looks like, this big green bump. And that's, I think he said that's USD volume per second was 100 billion. And then he did say probably nothing with a smile. All right, moving along. I say the same thing, probably nothing with a smile. Swiss Phoenix 30123 sent me this. FSB sets out timeline for next steps on regulation, supervision, and oversight of global stablecoin arrangements. Firms must adhere to all applicable regulatory standards before commencing operation, and it gives the dates down here. And as you watch the rest of these tabs I'm going to show you, it's all unfolding right before our eyes, folks. Pay attention. Michelle Vandenberg, IMF, ran this poll. In 5 years, how will you be sending money to a family member abroad? Let me refresh that and make sure that stat's right. 80.3 is what it said. 80.3% of people think that we're going to be transferring money with digital currency. Ding, 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 ding. I think we're right on that. Okay, XRP Buddha. Let me see if I follow this guy. Yep. Why would they make Brian Brooks acting comptroller of the currency if he is of the opinion that the U.S. dollar's role as the global reserve currency is nearing its end? Yes, because the U.S. can lead the transition. And they're showing an article from 2018 by Brian Brooks. America could lead the transition to digital currency reserve. That's exactly right. And it turns out Brian Brooks is the guy that's taking the lead for them. Now, This is a good thread. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I am going to go down a little ways and show you one thing. Important thread. If you don't think central bank digital currencies are coming, you are missing the big and important picture. This is going to be the biggest overhaul of the global financial system since Bretton Woods. Talking of Bretton Woods, this IMF article alludes to a huge change coming, but lacks real clarity, As we go down, he outlines everything that he's thinking about this, and it's really good. If you won't have time, he is at RAOULGMI. But I wanted to go down to this part. He talks about Jay Powell. Let's go down to, I think it was, hopefully I'll be able to spot it. Let's go down to somewhere right in, it's a long thread, isn't it? I think he said something about Mark Carney in this. I'm going to see. If I miss it, it's not the end of the world. The point is, Mark Carney's been involved in all of this, but I will skip it if I can't find it. But I swear I saw him mention Mark Carney in the thing. There it is. But it's not just the IMF. This was first floated by let's read this part. And tomorrow the IMF holds a conference on digital currencies and cross-border payment systems. But it's not just the IMF. This was first floated by Mark Carney at the Bank of England over a year ago and set the course for a new system. And this is what the link that he provided. Speech. The growing challenges for monetary policy in the current international monetary and financial system, from Mark Carney. And you may remember he was at Jackson Hole because he was on CNBC, and he's the one that floated this way back then. Now, there was this tweet right here. This is XRP Crypto Wolf. The Great Financial Reset, IMF Managing Director calls for a new Bretton Woods moment. IMF Director Kristalina, whatever her last name is, stressed that today's economic hardships are the same as the difficulties the world faced at the end of World War II. The Great Reset, folks. It's happening. You can either ignore it or pay attention. Doesn't matter to me. Well, it does matter to me. I want you to be able to benefit from this. It's XRP and XLM. Keep paying attention. Right here. IMF, another crypto wolf. IMF, Bretton Woods moment needed to save the world economy. The IMF, Kristalina, whatever her last name is, said that governments must work together to help save the world economy following the pandemic fallout, just like they did within the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944. XRP Crypto Wolf again. Stellar CEO will be part of the IMF annual meeting for cross-border payments. Danelle Dixon will be a part of a 4-person panel discussing on the private sector's role in addressing shortcomings of cross-border payments at the IMF's annual meeting. Right? And then this is from Sam Connor. James Rickers, 35 years on Wall Street, advised Johns Hopkins University and the U.S. Department of Defense. Doesn't believe Bitcoin will last long term, but explains why one foundation by the name of Stellar and its currency XLM will. Listen to this.
About that for a person who would say, well, Bitcoin's a protocol, so maybe it is going to be around and there's just going to be layers that are built on top of it. You agree with that?
No, it's too slow and too expensive. I mean, it's first of all, the energy consumption in mining, I'm sure you guys are familiar with the fact that it grows exponentially. They're on course to use more electricity than Japan, the third largest country in the world. Now, who thinks that the G20, the G7, the United Nations, and the people who control the world are going to allow a novelty coin to use more electricity than Japan? The Bitcoin fans go, well, here comes Lightning. Lightning is going to solve all the problems. It's not Bitcoin anymore. There's a cryptocurrency called Stellar. Lumen is the name of the coin. Stellar is the sponsoring organization. Ticker is XLM. This is actually being used to create a payment system in the southwestern Pacific and all those little tiny island nations, Micronesia and Samoa and Marianas. Well, think about what they have to do. So you go to a Starbucks in New Caledonia or someplace, and that poor bank is you got a merchant acquirer who accepts your MasterCard, then they got to hand it over to the local bank. That bank has to send it to a correspondent bank in Sydney, Australia. The bank in Sydney, Australia has got to run it through the Visa network. Then they got to get paid. Then they got to send it back to this little bank. So think of all the steps, all the costs, et cetera. What if you could replace that with a blockchain? They are doing this, by the way. This is a real pilot using the Lumen token. Well, IBM has built this. Lumen is the token of choice. It's working extremely well. And those value is moving around without going through this clunky central bank network and correspondent bank network that I just described. It's cheaper. That means, people can either lower prices or offer more services. And it's also big on remittances. A lot of countries around the world, the job opportunities are limited. So the population, they migrate, they go to Europe or the United States or elsewhere to get jobs. So there are real applications, but unless you can compete with Visa, MasterCard. See, the pilot I just described with Lumen is cheaper than Visa and MasterCard.
But there you go. All right. So remember, we got XLM in the game. They're the CEOs at the IMF for this thing they're doing actually today. And this is actually the live version of it right here. This is the what's his name? Karsten. He's with the BIS, but they're doing the live thing right now. And I'm waiting to get some clips from that. I know there's going to be a lot of clips. But here's the interesting thing. Let's go to this. I want to show you some of the panelists that are speaking there today. I just want to focus in on this guy, Dr. Ahmed. I'm not going to try to say his name. He's the governor of the Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority. So just so you know, it's not just Stellar in the game. We've known all along XRP is the one and Stellar is the other. Right? Listen to this. This is Ashish Burla, SVP of product at Ripple.
The last component is regulation, and you can't work with in payments without talking about the regulatory aspect. We've been working with central banks from around the world, SAMA in the Middle East, Bank of England, two examples that we've done pilots with.
So SAMA, who's at the IMF this week, Bank of England, who Mark Carney ran, okay.
Show the benefits of using blockchain technology to more efficiently move money. It's a big education project. This is something that we started 5 years ago, the conversations, the education. I think now other blockchain companies are starting to realize that you can't really innovate without taking the government and regulation in stride. We've been doing this for about 5 years. We have 40 different relations across the world to make sure that we're adhering to local regulations and standards as well.
All right. So Ripple's been there for the last 5 years all along. Now, this came out of the IMF because Jerome Powell is there as well.
Be able to contribute through technological innovation. The public sector brings a perspective that seeks broad public benefits. And with payment systems, there are going to be potentially large network effects that create increasing returns to scale, meaning that we may well see over time emerging a small number of dominant players and ultimately great difficulty in competing with those players. Indeed, that is what we see with a number of the tech giants today in their existing businesses away from payments. We do need to collaborate with the private sector to best achieve our goals, and we're very mindful of the challenges of doing so. And yes, we can be and we must be on the forefront of research and policy development. So the Fed has been working for a number of years to better understand the opportunities and risks presented by technological innovation. We're taking a multidisciplinary approach to these issues, bringing together economists, policy analysts, technologists, lawyers, and others to tackle the subject from multiple angles. We've been able to harness the strength of the Federal Reserve System with our 12 reserve banks and the Board of Governors to help us gain a more well-rounded view of the topic. So, for example,
but if you're one of those people that's sitting there saying, well, why is Stellar at the IMF? Why isn't Ripple there? Well, that's because Ripple is at DC Fintech Week with the other power players in this game. This is Brad Garlinghouse. He's going to be talking to Christopher Brummer. Let's remind you who's at DC Fintech Week. Tell me if you think any of these guys are making any of the decisions. There's Sharon Bowen, former commissioner of the CFTC, Undersecretary of International Affairs for the U.S. Department of Treasury, President, CEO, Women's World Banking. There's Kahina Van Dyke, who's a node on the network away at Standard Chartered Bank, according to Brad Garlinghouse. Let's see who else might be interesting here. Well, we've got the governor of the Central Bank of Kenya, deputy governor for the financial stability of the Bank of England. That's where Mark Carney was. CEO of Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse. We've got first deputy governor of Central Bank of Sweden. We've got the IBM is, now remember, this guy's founder and CEO, Promontory, an IBM company. I've shown you on this channel how many people came from Promontory, including Greg Kidd. And for those of you that don't remember, Promontory is referred to on its Wikipedia page as the shadow regulator of the United States. And there's like 5 or 6 people who came to Ripple originally that were at Promontory before they got there. Promontory Financial. Don't believe me? Look it up. Brian Brooks happens to be at this DC FinTech Week. Then this woman who is Rosie Rios, former treasurer of the United States. Then Benoit Curé, BIS Innovation Hub. We got a guy from FinCEN. We've got the chairman at the CFTC. Let's see who else we've got that's interesting here. I like this one. This is interesting. Right here. This is somebody else from the BIS. This guy's from the European Commission, by the way. This one is interesting to me. Director, Digital Currency Initiative, MIT Media Lab, Neha Narula. The reason that she interests me is because what we're all supposed to believe is that this is 5-10 years out, because Ripple and the United States, we're all so far behind China. They're way ahead of us. But Neha Narula, and this, I'll never forget it, she is right there. She was at Digital Currency Wars, a national security crisis simulation. And this is from November 19th of 2019. In other words, publicly, and I believe, I think that's her right there. We're supposed to believe that we're way, way behind, but they were publicly having they were simulating this war, digital currency war, and the whole theme of this simulation was that China, I think it was fast forward to 2020, China has just come out with their own digital currency, and they are threatening the whole system, and our status as the world reserve currency. They literally set up a fake war room at the White House.
Is that we not try to quash this effort, but we in fact try to get on board and even look for ways to partner with the Chinese government. That's the best way to ensure we maintain good relations and get the leverage we need on the North Korea question.
My question has always been and always will be, if this is what you were willing to do publicly, what were you doing behind the scenes? And what were you doing behind the scenes for 20 years before that? Or 30 even? The other interesting thing about this, of course, is that right here is Larry Summers, who's on the board of the Digital Currency Group. And right here is Gary Gensler, who is the guy who I believe it was 2018 or 2019, walks to the podium. He's an ex-CFTC guy, walks to the podium and says, I think that XRP is a security, but I don't, and I think Ethereum might be, but not Bitcoin. And I always remember, I never forget him, because he's a player in the game and all the world's a stage. Remember that. Now, I wanted to finish this up by showing you this. Now, I am not saying that Ripple has tried to deceive anybody. That is not my title. This is Kendra Hill from Steemit. Kaboom put this out. I've read this to you before. I believe that there are foundational truths in this write-up right here. Jed McCaleb, co-founder of Ripple and Stellar, supporter of Lucius Trust. I don't know anything about that. His family ties connecting him to the Federal Reserve and the United Nations. In 2014, he moved on from Ripple to create Stellar, giving illusion that the two organizations were separate entities. Ripple and Stellar are like brother and sister, each providing something of value in the new world financial system. Ripple is said to be a cross-border payment provider, and with the use of XRP, it will be for a short period of time. The world will not need a cross-border payment provider when we are using the Lumen. The Stellar Lumens will become the world currency, while XRP becomes a store of value. The Lumen is digital silver, and XRP is digital gold. The purpose of XRP is to be used in the derivatives market. In other words, all the money. Think DTCC. While also acting as a store of value. XRP is not and was never intended to be a currency, nor was it created to be used specifically for a cross-border payments. When Codius is released, we will see its true purpose unveiled. Ripple and Stellar are keys to the new world financial system, which will be ushered in as the old system collapses. Perfect timing. Now, I used to think that XRP was going to be called a currency, but think about what we've seen here recently. We've seen Brad Garlinghouse come out at least 3 or 4 times now, and he keeps pointing to that legislation that is what was it called? The digital currency commodities something. It was basically, he said, we need legislation like this. And it's almost as if he was pointing, saying XRP needs to be called a commodity just like Bitcoin has been called a commodity. That's what I'm reminded of when I'm looking at this now, is it's because it says here, where did it say it? The purpose, right here. The purpose of XRP is to be used in the derivatives market while also acting as a store of value. XRP is not and was never intended to be a currency. I thought it was intended to be a currency, but now I'm seeing Brad Garlinghouse point to this commodity legislation. And that's where the ding, ding, ding's going off for me on this. I'm going to finish this video with this because I think esoteric XRP is hitting on something here. For those who like to exercise their brains, hypothetical, if XRP were to be $2,000 one day, do you think Trump or the elites, whoever is in charge, allow the top XRP holder with 5 billion XRP to be worth over $10 trillion? I've never believed that, folks. I believe that all the world's a stage, and that 50 billion that's in quote escrow has been, you call it what you want, earmarked, pre-allocated. And I believe that they're going to, as we're seeing, they're setting up lending facilities. I do not believe for 2 seconds that Ripple is going to be allowed to be a lender of last resort. Now, maybe they will designate it some sort of a bank or a World Bank type thing, designated as something. I think that's what Miguel Valles hinted at one point, was that Ripple would be, there would be some kind of a new organization created. And I don't think it's going to be some for-profit company either. I think it would be something that would be more or less for the world, or at least for the United States. But make no mistake, the plan was never to have some individual guy worth $10 trillion. I don't believe that for 2 seconds. That it might have been to make somebody worth 10 trillion, but not the guys that started a startup out of Silicon Valley, somebody much bigger and much higher up than that. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family that no, I don't believe that Chris Larson or anybody else individually with Ripple is going to be allowed to be worth $10 trillion. No. It's for someone, but not for a couple of guys that started a startup. Guarantee you that. Thanks for listening.
Every day, billions of people around the world are mocked, ridiculed, laughed at, and embarrassed by their friends, family, and even strangers. These people go through their days knowing there are secrets being kept from them. They hear the faint whispers behind closed doors. The information and knowledge is held very close and only shared with others who were fortunate enough to find out. Feeling lost, rejected, and ostracized, these people give up, never finding out what digital assets the digital asset investor holds. But there is hope. Join the free Digital Asset Investor email newsletter and find out what digital assets he owns each month, including investments he's considering. Click the link in the description of this video or go to digitalassetinvestornewsletter.com. Put an end to your days of gloom and depression. Join the greatest free digital asset email newsletter ever created.